Righto. Good morning, kia ora. Willkommen, meine Damen und Herren. Please take a seat. If you can, if you can't, stand at the back. We're going to start. Es ist meine große Freude, heute unsere Gast Nalini Singh vorzustellen und sie durch unsere Diskussion zu begleiten.
Hello. Thanks for coming.
Wir führen unsere Gespräche auf Englisch. Es gibt ein Dolmetscher, es gibt Audiogeräte, wo man Deutsch dann hören kann. Aber während die Lesungen werden wir, ich frage die Dolmetscher bitte nicht zu übersetzen. Wir haben hier Barbara Stoll als Sprecherin auf Deutsch zu lesen.
Hallo.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to welcome Nalini Singh, a best-selling author from New Zealand, and Barbara Stoll, who is going to do readings for us in German. I'll sit down and make myself comfortable, and we'll begin. Nalini sells hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of books. Nalini is a huge bestseller, and she has a very wide fan base. And I know that some of her fans are here in the audience with us today. Can we hear? Are you there? Those of you fans, I am going to ask for your patience because we need to also, the people who don't know Nalini's work, and this really includes me, we need to introduce her and ask a lot of questions that you will know all the answers to. I was asking Nalini earlier, do you think that your fans may know more about your work than you do? And she said, well, perhaps.
Sometimes.
So bear with us and we'll give you time for questions and answers at the end. We're going to begin with a reading from the series called the Psy-Changeling series. We're going to read from Kiss of Snow, which in German is Lockruf des Verlangens. This is number 10, book number 10 in the Psy-Changeling series, the Gestaltwandler-Reihe. Tell us briefly, Nalini, about the series.
Okay, so the Psy-Changeling series is set in an alternate reality. And the basic question that started the series was, what if psychic abilities were real to the extent that I could actually telepath my thoughts to you? Oh, I've been told off. Put the microphone closer. What if, you had true telepathy, true telekinesis, and you used every part of your brain, at the same time? And at first I thought, oh, fantastic, that's brilliant. Then I thought, oh, what if it actually drove you insane to be able to hear people's thoughts and, to do all this with your mind? What if the cost was insanity and murderous insanity? And what would you do to survive? And so that's the genesis of the Psy race.
Tell us about the different, we've got, in the Psy-Changeling series, we have different characters. These include the Psys, the Changelings, and humans.
Humans, yeah. So the humans are ordinary humans, and then the Psy are the ones with the psychic abilities, and as a result of all the madness and stuff, they've actually conditioned emotion out of themselves. They've believed that this will help them. And the Changelings are shapeshifters who can shift into things like leopards and wolves, and they are the polar opposites of the Psy. They're very emotional, very connected to their families. And the humans, at the start of the series, it appears they have no role to play because they're caught in between these two powerful races. But they do have a very important role to play that becomes more obvious as the series continues.
So we're going to read from Kiss of Snow, and we're going to show you the different covers. This is the American cover of Kiss of Snow.
This is the UK and Commonwealth cover.
And this is the German one.
Yes, I think, do we need to explain anything about this passage? I think.
I'll just explain a little bit about this book. So, A Kiss of Snow is the 10th book in the series, and it's about Hawk and Sienna. Yay! And they were introduced in book 1. And Sienna is younger than Hawk by quite a bit, and so he has always kept his distance from her. And so the tension between these two has been building and building and building. And this is really one of their first contacts, like as adults, together. And he is willing to see her as a woman, kind of. So here we go.
So, Nalini Singh reading from Kiss of Snow.
Okay, here we go. A dangerous pause, so dangerous that Sienna snapped her mouth closed, swallowing the words that wanted to escape. Until he brought the truck to a halt deep in an unfamiliar part of Dentura territory. The night was pitch black, starless and moonless, the trees murky shadows that seemed to form an impenetrable wall around them. Why are we stopping? You wanted to talk. We'll talk. Her palms went damp at that smooth, silky tone. I'm putting aside my alpha status. Oh, he was furious.
Dann wollen wir mal sehen, was du zu deiner Verteidigung vorbringen kannst. Er drehte sich zu ihr und legte den Arm hinter ihr auf die Rückenlehne. Jetzt erklär mir mal, wie du heute Abend eine Massenprügelei beendet hättest. Das lag nicht an mir, sagte sie und versuchte trotz seiner überwältigenden Präsenz zu atmen. Das mit den Frauen war nur eine Ausrede. Die Männer wollten schon aufeinander los, seit wir die Bar betreten hatten. Die ganze Zeit liefen da Dominanzspielchen. Und obwohl du das wusstest, hast du noch einen draufgelegt. Auf einmal war es viel zu eng im Wagen. Hawk war zu nah. Sein sehr männlicher Geruch schien in jede ihrer Poren zu sickern, sie an Stellen zu berühren, die bislang keine Männerhand gestreift hatte. War nicht meine Schuld. Ach, nein, plötzlich schoss Wut in ihr hoch. Ich bin doch nicht für alles verantwortlich. Vielleicht wollte ich ausnahmsweise mal ein bisschen Spaß haben, einfach nur mal tanzen. Hawk schloss die Augen. Als er sie wieder aufschlug, glühten sie im Dunkeln wie eisblauer Stahl. Sienna hielt die Luft an. Jetzt saß der Wolf vor ihr. Du willst also tanzen. Heisere Worte, die wie weiches Fell über ihre Haut strichen. Sie nickte. Dann lass uns tanzen. Er stellte die Musikanlage an und wählte etwas aus. Dann verließ er den Wagen. Ihre Tür ging auf, als die ersten Takte einer langsamen Ballade ertönten. Komm. Eine Einladung, aber mehr noch ein Befehl. Die Stiefel, platzte sie heraus. Zittrige Erwartung hatte den Zorn abgelöst. Der Boden ist trocken, du wirst nicht einsinken. Es kam ihr vor wie ein Traum. Als sie seine Hand nahm, musste sie gegen die überwältigenden Empfindungen ankämpfen, die seine Berührung und sein Duft in ihr auslösten. Sie ließ sich von ihm vor den Wagen ziehen. Er legte die Hände auf die Hüften und zog sie an sich. Sein heißer Atem war wie eine Liebkosung, als er sich vorbeugte und ihr ins Ohr flüsterte, Arme um meinen Hals. Der Befehl gab ihr die Stimme zurück. Ich dachte, du wärst hier kein Leitwolf. Bin ich auch nicht. Sie hob die Arme, die Absätze waren hoch genug, dass er eine Hand auf seinen Nacken und die andere auf seine kräftige Schulter legen konnte. Er rückte ein wenig näher, sein Kinn kratzte an ihrer Schläfe und ihr Herz pochte wie wild. So nah und so heiß, nur Muskeln und Kraft, reine Verführung. Er hatte sie von Anfang an verführt.
Thank you. As you've just heard, these novels are very much about passion, they're about emotion, they're about sensuality. There's, when I read them, there's a lot about how people smell, how people look. Mm-hmm. These things are clearly very important to you in your writing.
Yeah, I think if you're writing about characters falling in love, in a heart, these are love stories. These are things we notice about someone when we are falling in love. We want to know the touch and the taste and the smell. But also, in terms of the series, we're in the Changeling point of view, and they are very sensual. When I write from the Psy point of view, it's much colder and much more distant. Yes.
Tell, for those of us who are not so familiar with this world, with the Changelings, Hawk is wolf and...
Yes, he's
in human form.
Yes, he's an alpha wolf, so he is the leader of the Snow Dancer wolves, and he can shapeshift into his wolf form. And unlike when I started writing the series, the werewolf is very well known as, an archetype. But, it always seemed so horribly painful for people to shift, or it was something unwanted. And I wanted to write true shifters who were at home with both sides of their nature. So for them to shift into their other form is quite easy and painless, and something they can do at any time. Yeah.
When you write these highly emotional scenes, are you writing on a wave of emotion, or are you writing in a more distanced, objective?
I'm very involved in the story when I write. There's a particular scene in the 7th book, Blaze of Memory, at the end, and it makes a lot of people cry. And when I was writing it, I was crying over the keyboard. I had to walk away because I couldn't stand it. It was just so painful. And I think the passion comes through on the page because I pour all that in there.
Yet at the same time, the works are very, very well planned. And I think especially with a series that's stretching over, we're going to come to the 11th book in a moment, that stretches over so many books with so many different characters, because I must also explain that in these books, different characters who are a minor figure in one book become a lead in another. But you are also very technically precise. You work with a series Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tell us about these technical devices that you use.
When I first started my very first series, I'd never written a series before, so I didn't know, how to write a series. But what I had done, I'd been watching TV, and I had realized that the best seasons of TV had a very clear story arc. And so I knew for a good series, you must have a beginning and you must have an end. So when I started, the first book in the Psy-Changeling series, I already knew what the end was going to be. And I think having that has helped, keep it all together, connected, like a string of pearls. Each one is connected on this necklace, and we're heading towards this end, and this tension is building and building. And in terms of what I use, I keep very detailed notes about characters and timeline events. It stops mistakes. Like I had a character who was pregnant, and I shifted a timeline event in a book by 2 months because I thought it would, maybe work a little better. And then I was double checking the timeline, and I realized she's 11 months pregnant now. So I do keep those technical notes to make sure, because the timelines in these books, a year might stretch over 7 or 8 books. So I have to keep very detailed timelines to make sure I don't make those kind of goofs.
And do you have an overall story arc for the whole series?
Yes, absolutely. From the start, I've had an overall story arc. I don't plan that out in minute detail, but that's the big story idea, and that story idea I've had from the start. And the detail comes in each book as I work in it.
Then let's move on to our next reading, which is from Tangle of Need, Einsame Spur, in German. For those who've just joined us, we're talking to Nalini Singh, an author of paranormal romances, best-selling author on the New York Times best-selling list. And we have our German reader, Barbara Stoll. Barbara is an actress, a director, a singer. She comes from Stuttgart, and she's got a singing show coming up in Stuttgart later this month and in November. But back to our focus. Tangle of Need, which is number 11 in the Psy-Changeling series.
So this is going to be out next year in Germany. So you guys are getting an advanced German excerpt in a minute. So I'll start it in English, and Barbara is going to continue. Okay. Adria blinked, fingertips tightening on the sides of the plasmap. I appreciate it. It was the only thing she could say without giving everything away. Riaz snorted, his hands strong and competent on the manual steering wheel as he navigated a particularly steep embankment, his bronzed arms dusted with a sprinkling of fine black hair. About as much as you appreciate a root canal, he said, thrusting the vehicle into hover drive. But whatever your problem is with me, we have to work together. Do you want to start?
That's another world, ja. Sie schob den Unterkiefer vor und konzentrierte sich auf das, was sie durch die Windschutzscheibe sah. Die beeindruckendste Landschaft der ganzen weiten Welt. Der Sommer ging dem Ende zu. Der Herbst hing wie eine kühle Verheißung in der Luft. Doch an diesem Ort war das Land noch in tiefes Grün getaucht und auf den fernen Bergwipfeln lag Schnee. Sie war hier aufgewachsen und obwohl sie so lange weg gewesen war, regten sich bei dem Anblick in ihrer Wölfin dieselben Empfindungen wie bei allen anderen Wölfen im Rudel auch. Das Revier der Höhle war für alle ein Zuhause, selbst wenn sie einem anderen Ort diesen Namen gegeben hatten. Hier kann ich genesen. Ein Gedanke ganz tief in ihr, der beinahe die Anspannung löste, wer ist denn das? Sie beugte sich vor, als ein großer hellbrauner Wolf links an ihnen vorbei über eine Wiese eine schlanke silberne Wölfin verfolgte, die sie sofort erkannt hatte. Der Rabauke stützte sich auf Ivy. Wut stieg in ihr auf. Halt an! Rias amüsiertes Auflachen fachte ihren Zorn noch mehr an. Das ist Tai. Und Ivy würde eine Störung nicht zu schätzen wissen, Tante Adria. Adria verkniff sich eine harsche Zurechtweisung und sah sich die beiden Wölfe noch einmal genauer an. Nun fiel ihr auf, was sie zuerst übersehen hatte. Sie ballten sich spielerisch mit Krallen und Zähnen, aber keineswegs wirklich aggressiv. In dem Augenblick, als Rias einen Schlenker machte und die beiden gleich darauf aus ihrem Blickfeld verschwanden, rieben sie gerade die Köpfe aneinander. Tai und Ivy spielten gar nicht, sie warben umeinander. Sie ist noch zu jung. Indigo war beinahe so alt wie Adria, aber Ivy war erst weit später zur Welt gekommen. Das kleine Mädchen war um sie herumgekrabbelt, als Indigo und Adria Teenager gewesen waren. Ein süßes, eigenwilliges und von allen geliebtes Kind. Adria konnte sich nicht vorstellen, dass ihre unterwürfige Nichte in der Lage war, mit einem dominanten Mann umzugehen. Sie hatte Tai kennengelernt und wusste, dass er weit stärker und gefährlicher als Ivy war. Sie ist eine Wölfin, sagte Rias mit tiefer Stimme, die unangenehm auf Adrias Brüsten vibrierte. Eine erwachsene Wölfin. Berührung ist für die meisten von uns eine Notwendigkeit. Auch wenn Sie es vergessen haben sollten, Miss Frost. Ihre Hand ballte sich zur Faust, die Nerven lagen blank. 1 Jahr. Seit 1 Jahr hatte sie keine intime Berührung mehr gehabt. Was für eine Raubtier-Gestaltwandlerin in den besten Jahren ein schmerzhaft langer Zeitraum war. Und selbst davor waren die Gelegenheiten rar gewesen. Und ihre Wölfin hungerte nach Zuneigung. Aber sie war damit zurechtgekommen, hatte mit dieser Seite in sich Frieden geschlossen, bis Rias und die heftige sexuelle Anziehung, die auf sie ausübte, die Krallen in ihr Fleisch geschlagen hatten, sodass sie kaum noch klar denken konnte. Da wir schon mit Steinen auf Glashäuser werfen, sagte sie und schützte sich, indem sie zum Angriff überging. Ich bin hier nicht die Einzige, die alleine schläft. Rias war ein begehrenswerter Mann. Die Tatsache, dass er keine Geliebte hatte, machte alle Wölfinnen nervös, die sich nichts Besseres vorstellen konnten, als mit ihm in die Kiste zu hüpfen. Vielleicht solltest du mal lieber über dich selber nachdenken. Rias knurrte tief, sie spürte seine Dominanz deutlich. Er fuhr an die Seite und hielt den Wagen an. Das reicht jetzt. Unter seinem Blick wagte sie es nicht, sich zu rühren. Was ist nur im Teufel mit dir los? Fahr weiter, sagte sie, obwohl sie fast aus der Haut gefahren wäre. So stark war der Wunsch, ihm das T-Shirt herunterzureißen und die Zähne in die festen Muskeln zu schlagen.
That's Barbara Stoll reading from Tangle of Need, or Einsame Spur, by our star guest today, Nalini Singh. The setting, tell us about the setting of that passage that we've just heard.
It's set in the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California. Yeah.
So although you're a New Zealand writer, you don't use New Zealand locations in your books.
No, for me, location is driven by the story. And for this particular, series, I needed a really big location. And I needed a place that had cities and rivers and mountains and lakes and deserts, this whole wide area. And I had actually been to California and really loved it and felt I could do it justice in stories. And it had all those elements for the series.
So you do research trips, you travel.
Yeah, when I can.
You were recently in India?
I was. And actually, Archangel Storm, the 5th book in the Guild Hunter series,
which we'll come to shortly,
is actually set in India because I knew I wanted to, set this book in India, and I had never been to India. And so I just thought, this is the time to go. And no, it was fantastic. Being there, you know, I have written places I haven't been to, but having been someplace, I am able to write it much, much more in depth and with more nuance. Yeah.
And perhaps at this point we'll mention that Nalini's ancestors come from India, but emigrated to Fiji perhaps more than 100 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
So Nalini is a Fijian New Zealander, but you grew up in New Zealand.
I did. I moved to New Zealand when I was 10. Yeah, so I'm a Kiwi.
Do you think that this mix of cultural heritages plays a role in the fact that in your alternate world that you create, there are not different ethnicities, but almost different species?
You know, I think growing up as I did has helped in terms of the breadth of my work. I'm very aware of what else is out there and other cultural norms, and what might be normal for us, for one person, is not necessarily normal for another group. And I think that knowledge does help shape my books.
Perhaps that also is a reason why your books speak to so many women in so many different countries.
Yeah, perhaps.
They sell extremely well in the United States. They sell extremely well in Germany. Where else are your books? Where else is your fan base?
The US and Germany are the biggest. So I love you guys. But they're more recently. They were published in the UK and the Commonwealth, and they're doing really well in various countries. I get letters from anywhere from Indonesia to Africa. So it's fantastic.
And India also? Do you have a readership?
Yes, I do actually. I think I'm building a readership in India, which has been really fun to have the emails and Facebook messages start to come in.
Let's move. We mentioned very briefly the next series that we're going to look at, which is the Guild Hunter series. This is more recent. You began this...
Mm-hmm. So it would have been, I think, 3 years ago the first book came out. Yeah.
And we're going to do a reading from Angel's Dance, which is a novella. It's not a separate novel. It's a short novel, which in Germany you can get in a book. Have you got it there? Yes. In a collection called Dunkle Verlockung. This collection contains two Guild Hunter stories and one Psy-Changeling novella. So let's move on to this new series. We need to say something about the Guild Hunter series.
Yeah.
I think introduce the kinds of characters that we have in this series.
Okay, so the Guild Hunter series is set in modern-day New York, but it's a New York that's run by an archangel, and has vampires as his servants. And to become a vampire, you have to sign a contract to serve the angels for 100 years. And, sometimes after people become vampires, they don't want to serve, they don't want to do their side of the bargain. So this is where the Guild Hunters come in. They are basically bounty hunters. They drag the vampires back to the angels to serve out that 100 years. And so it's a New York where you can look up and you might see angels above Fifth Avenue, flying along. But these are not your fluffy, nice angels. They're immortals, and they are hard. They have been hardened by living so many thousands of years, and they have seen millions of humans die. So really, they think we're ants, just easily discarded. So it's a very different point of view. They are really not human. They are inhuman. But this particular novella that we're going to read from, it's actually a prequel novella set 400 years ago. And it's about the meeting of two characters who are secondary characters in the main series.
So we'll have a reading from Angel's Dance, Engelstanz, by Nalini Singh, and also read by Barbara Stoll.
Okay. What? Dropping her bag to the ground, she waited for him to put her down, even as she barely resisted the urge to use their proximity to push back that too long hair of his, the strands once more brushing his eyelashes. No, that's not why I don't fly. Galen continued to examine her with those eyes of ice and spring until she had to answer, to confess a secret so terrible and deep she'd never before spoken it to anyone, not even to Keir, who had known her for millennia. It's because I want it too much. Vulnerability hit her on the heels of her confession, a punch to the gut that would have had her crumpling if she hadn't been held in arms of heated living iron. Put me down. She couldn't bear to see pity mark the hard lines of his face. Since I already know your secret, Galen said instead, nuzzling his chin against her hair, do you want to go flying? Jessamie's heart stopped. It would only make the hunger worse, she whispered, lifting a hand to brush back that thick, silken hair the colour of the brilliant heart of a mountain sunset. I can fly for hours without faltering. He settled her even closer, the wild heat of him burning into her skin, infusing her blood. And, he murmured, holding her gaze, you'll be far safer in the air than anywhere else. It terrified her, what he was offering, not just his wings, but the molten emotion he made no effort to hide. It had nothing to do with pity. Galen. Bending his head, he spoke so close it was almost a kiss. His lips but a breath from her own, hold on tight, and then he stepped backward off the ledge of his eyrie.
Sie schrie auf, als in die Tiefe fiel. Teils vor Freude, teils vor fassungsloser Überraschung. Ich habe ja noch gar nicht Ja gesagt. Sie schlang die Arme fest um seinen Hals. Galen stellte sich taub und stürzte sich in die Tiefe und schraubte sich wieder in die Höhe. All das vor den Felswänden derselben Schlucht, die ihr vorhin noch Angst und Schrecken durch den ganzen Körper gejagt hatten. Aber nicht jetzt. Nicht in Galens festem Griff. Ein schwindelerregendes Gefühl fuhr ihr durch die Glieder und wieder musste sie lachen. Er benahm sich wie einer ihrer Schützlinge. Auch diese ignorierten sie manchmal, weil sie hofften, Jessamie würde sie dann nicht tadeln. Und vermutlich hatte er damit recht, denn Galen konnte vielleicht fliegen. Nachdem er sich in die Tiefe gestürzt hatte, sauste er mit ihr dicht über den tosenden Fluss am Grund der Schlucht hinweg und streifte dabei die Wasseroberfläche. Die Spritzer trafen ihre Füße und ihr Gesicht, und in spontaner Zuneigung rieb sie dieses Gesicht an seinen Hals. Er neigte den Kopf und sah sie mit einem Berserkergrinsen an, bevor er wieder in die Höhe flog, höher, immer höher, bis sie sich hoch in der substanzlosen Watte der Wolken befanden. Die glitzernden, mineraldurchsetzten Gebäude der Zufluchtsstätte lagen nun hinter einer Bergkette verborgen. Eine unüberwindliche Barriere für Wesen ohne Flügel. Unter ihnen lag das Land wie ein wildes, buntes Bild, das sie zuletzt vor langer Zeit gesehen hatte, als noch ein Kind gewesen war und ihr Vater sie in den Himmel hinaufgetragen hatte. »Danke, Vater. Du bist mein Kind, Jessamie. Ich würde alles tun, um dich lachen zu hören und ein wunderschönes Lächeln dabei zu sehen.« Ihr Vater liebte sie, ebenso wie ihre Mutter. Aber wenn sie zur Erde zurückgekehrt waren, war hinter ihren fröhlichen Gesichtern stets eine solche Traurigkeit versteckt, dass Jessamie es irgendwann nicht mehr ertragen konnte und sich deshalb selbst geerdet hatte. Es war eine schmerzhafte Entscheidung gewesen, nicht mehr durch die Lüfte zu fliegen, aber das war vorübergegangen. Jetzt konnten Jessamies Eltern ihre Behinderung manchmal vergessen und sie einfach nur als ihre Tochter ansehen, die sie liebten und deren Erfolge sie vor Stolz glühen ließen. Ein Strom aus Licht, gleißend hell wie juwelenbesetzte Kieselstein, zerstreute diese freudlosen Erinnerungen. Sie sah nach unten und erblickte einen spiegelglatten See, der die untergehende Sonne in all ihrem verstörenden Glanz reflektierte. Das Wasser wurde zu einem feurigen Kessel, der Himmel eine züngelnde Flamme. Lippen und ein warmer Atemhauch streiften ihr Ohr. »Möchtest du landen?« Sie schüttelte den Kopf. Nie wieder wollte sie die Erde berühren. Galen tauchte ab, um sich von einem gemächlichen Wind tragen zu lassen und flog mit ihr weiter hinaus, bis sie über Gegenden hinwegglitten, die sie noch nie mit eigenen Augen gesehen hatten, sondern nur aus den Erzählungen anderer kannte. Ihre Seele sog diesen Anblick und die Empfindungen in sich auf. Die frische Luft auf ihren Wangen, den verspielten Wind, bis der ausgedörrte Boden in ihr seinen Durst allmählich gestillt hatte. Die Schönheit und Erhabenheit raubten ihr den Atem, als Galen sie auf seinen unermüdlichen Flügeln immer weiter trug, um ihr Wunder über Wunder zu zeigen. Okay.
That was from Angel's Dance, in the Guild Hunter, Gilde der Jäger series. if you're not one of Nalini's fans already, but you're interested, this is perhaps a good way to start, because the novellas are standalone. You can read them without...
Absolutely. You can just pick up this collection and dive in, and you'll be perfectly fine. Yeah.
But let's get back to the Guild Hunter series and the new book that's going to come out in April next year.
Yes. So that's going to be Jason's story. It's coming out in German, next year.
Jason is a minor character in an earlier book?
He has been a very important part of the earlier books in the series. He is the spy master, and he has black wings, and he is basically
He's
a shadow.
an archangel.
No, he's an angel. He works...
He's an angel.
Yeah, he's loyal to Raphael, who is the archangel, and he is one of the 7. And the 7 are vampires and angels who have given their loyalty to Raphael. And Jason has been loyal to Raphael for hundreds of years. And his job is basically to find out everything he can about anyone who might harm the archangel or secrets. His business is secrets. He's a spy master. And so in the books, he has always been a shadow. We don't know much about him. We know he has some Pacific ancestry. But he stays back. He doesn't push himself forward at all. And in this book, it has a very different feel to the earlier books because of who Jason is. It is a quieter story because for Jason, it takes time to trust anyone, to open up.
The book begins with a traumatic experience in his childhood.
Yes. It tells you what shaped him into this quietness that is so much a part of him. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone, so I'll just say, it was something that horrible happened to him as a child, and as a result, he basically didn't speak for, hundreds of years.
Being an immortal hundreds of years is a short time.
But for a child, it's a long time, even as an immortal child. Yeah.
Yes. Are most of your readers women?
I think the majority are women, but particularly I think with the Guild Hunter series, there are more and more men reading it because it's got an urban fantasy edge. And urban fantasy is things like True Blood, the series, the Charlene Harris series is based on. That's more accessible, I think, to a male readership as well.
And what about, I think this is a question that we have to ask, we who are new to your work, the role models, the men are often dominant, but the women are feisty and bright. Do you get criticism about falling into stereotypes?
I don't think so. I think if you read through the series, you find there's all kinds of characters. There's strength in all different ways. I've had dominant women who are the lieutenants of the pack, who are just as strong, as the males. And I've had women who are like an empath, who isn't physically strong, but is emotionally very, very tough. Tougher than maybe a lot of the men. So across the series, you get a lot of different kinds of characters.
Right. And, let me put this a different way.
Now I'm scared.
I'm wondering about you writing genre fiction, because these books are in paranormal romance genre. Mm-hmm. And there are other writers like you who are also writing best-selling series. Is this writing for a genre freeing for you, or is it some kind of a straitjacket that means that people like me don't really know about your books because I think, paranormal romance is perhaps not for me?
No, for me as a writer, it's hugely freeing, particularly the paranormal genre. You can do anything with it. You can literally go anywhere you want. And as a writer, all I have to do is stay true to my rules that I've set for my world. And other than that, the canvas is totally blank. In terms of labels, I think that's something that happens to all kinds of books. They get labeled as literary fiction or romance or mystery, and then, certain readers might not pick it up. But hopefully as the series grows and people talk about it, then more people will become aware of it. So I don't necessarily feel it's like a straitjacket or anything. I think the label thing is just, it's going to apply across the board anyway, whatever genre you choose to write in. Yeah.
And they are a very exciting read, and as I said at the beginning, very sensual, very passionate. I think now is the time to give a voice to the people who have come. Some of you, I believe, have come for quite a long distance to be here today to hear Nalini. We've got a microphone somewhere at the back. If you've got a question, please put up your hand and somebody will bring you a microphone and Nalini will take your questions. Yes, we have a question over here. Can we have a microphone to...
It's coming.
It's coming.
Oh, do you want to say that they can ask in German?
Yes, and also that Nalini has just reminded me, if you're not confident about asking in English, please ask in German and I will do my best to translate and we can still give you a voice that way.
Hello.
Hi.
So I have a question about a new Psy. In the last book, in Hawk's book, we get to know a new Psy, and his name is Aiden. And I just wanted to know if we're going to see more of him, if he has his own story or something like that, because he's very interesting.
He is very interesting. You will definitely get to see more of him. I can't tell you yet whether he'll have a story of his own, but you will get to, if he doesn't have a story, you will still get to see him through the books. So you'll get to know his story that way.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Do we have any more questions? Yes, we have a question down here.
Hello, I have a question too. Will Caleb sometime get a book or her own story? Because he is very interesting and I think it will be nice.
You know what? Are you sure he's a good guy? And he's hot. I think I'm going to leave you in suspense for that one. You'll have to think about whether he's a good guy or a villain. So, yeah.
I think that's a very good point, that Nalini's characters, they never seem to be perfect. They're full of flaws.
Yes, I think it's really important, to write a character as a person. Each of my characters is very unique. And I think of myself as a character-based writer, so I start with the characters and then tell their stories and go where they want me to go. And so, yes, they are going to have flaws because everybody has flaws. Nobody is perfect.
Well, it makes them more interesting,
doesn't it? It is. Perfect people are boring, right?
We have a question down the front. Perhaps if you could say your name and where you come from. This is interesting, I think, for the audience.
Hi, my name is Isabel and I'm come from Stuttgart. And my question is, how do the characters come to you? I mean, they have so much personality, and I can't imagine how you can imagine all these different types of characters.
That's a good question. Sometimes I describe it like watching a movie in my head, and then when I write the books, I'm writing scenes from this movie. And so for me, the characters tend to appear like full, complete personalities. And usually when I do my first draft, I don't do a plan. And that first draft is me getting to know the characters really well. So that's how I do it. I just sit down and I write and I look through the eyes of the character and learn about them that way. And by the end of the first draft, I know them really, really well. And then I go back to the start and start again. And so I think, that works for me really well. And the good thing about writing a series, which I really, really love, is that I get to know my characters not just over one book. I get to know them over multiple books. Like, for example, Kiss of Snow, Hawk and Sienna's book. I'd known these two characters for 10 books already by the time I started to write their book. So I had so much information about them and I knew them so well. And I felt I could really write them honestly as to who they are. So that's kind of a long-winded answer. But, it's just getting to know them, bit by bit.
And when you began writing, did you start like that? Did you start writing when you wrote your very first book?
I was actually I've been writing since I was very young, and I wrote my first complete book when I was 18. It wasn't that great. I thought it was fabulous, but the editors didn't think so. You know, the rejection came back so fast, my head spun around. You know, I think it's been a learning process. So when I started writing, I thought this is how everything should be, and I tried to I think that's what we do. We emulate other writers that we admire, and I thought this is how. But as the years have gone by, I found my own process, and that process is to go through my characters. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question here. A lady with her hand up.
And I think there's one at the front. She's been waiting for a while, so we can ask afterwards. Yes.
Hello, I'm Nicole from Wertheim, and I want to know if Ilium got an own book because he is so beautiful. Really, his wings. Oh my God! I want
Describe
to read
him.
him.
What does he look like?
Blue wings and I don't know. He's only gorgeous. I can't say.
You know, he has quite a fan club, Ilium. The interesting thing about the secondary characters in the Guild Hunter series is that Angel's Blood was meant to be a stand-alone book. I was already writing a series, and I thought, right, I want to do some stand-alone books in between, because it's actually quite difficult to keep two series. You know, I have to keep all the notes in my head. And then I wrote this book, and I sent it to my agent, and I said, here, there's my standalone book. And she said, you know it's not finished, right? So yeah, I knew it wasn't finished, so then I wrote book 2. So, and these secondary characters, they were just so powerful, you know, Ilium and Jason and Dimitri and all of them. And so I was like, I can't leave them behind. So I would definitely like to write about Ilium, but I feel very strongly about only writing stories when they really speak to me, when it's really the character's voice coming through. So, you know, when Ilium decides to speak up, you know, you'll get a story. He's staying quiet right now, so we'll see.
So, a question at the front. Can we have a microphone?
We get some nice music in the back too.
Hi, I started getting a big sympathy for Nikita, and I want to ask if she ever warms up and maybe gets her own wolf or leopard someday.
Tell us who Nikita is.
Okay, so Nikita is actually a really interesting character. She is the mother of the heroine in the very first book, and she's very hard. She's very cold. She basically disowns her child when she turns out to have emotions. You know, she's not the perfect Psy, and she cuts her off, you know, dead. And this is a woman who is at the top of. She is very, very powerful. She has blood on her hands, and so at the start, that's who she is. She is this character you just hate, really. And as the series continues, we've got to know layers of her. Like, she's cut Sasha off, her daughter, completely. Yet at the same time, she set up a trust fund for her grandchild. Secretly, anonymously, but we all know it was Nikita. And so she is a character that's so multi-hued. You know, she's fascinating to write, because at one side she's evil, she's an evil character, but at the other side there's all this interesting, you know, perhaps niceness to her. Does she care, actually? And so yeah, she is very interesting, and but I don't know if you would ever see a traditional kind of story for her. But she's definitely somebody that you're going to keep getting to see in the books, and maybe see more of the layers peeled off, you know, to get to the real. Who is the real Nikita? We don't know. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have Yes, we have a question here. Can we have a microphone? Yes.
Hi. Also eine Frage. Okay, one question. You are so big star. She has told New York Times and don't know where. But how you can be so simple?
You know what? I'm a Kiwi. This is how we are.
You are basically Indian. Okay. Just one thing you asked before about the fans in India. Yeah, you have at least one fan here. I'm from India.
And a man. Yes.
Yeah. And maybe I request you if you can also translate in Hindi. This will be maybe much helpful for we Indians.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But I think in India, a lot of people read in English.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who can also who will be read when this is in Hindi. So maybe you will have a very big fan.
I'll suggest it.
Nalina's agents here.
Yeah.
Yes, a question at the front.
Hallo,
Here, thank you.
ich bin die Johanna und ich komme aus Münster und ich würde es auf Deutsch die Frage
Yes.
gerne stellen. Könnten Sie sich vorstellen, dass eine Ihrer Reihe auch verfilmt werden könnte, wird oder vielleicht liegt schon ein Angebot vor?
She's asking whether you can imagine that your stories will be turned into films.
I think they could be. I think they would make great films or TV series, maybe, because there's a continuing series. But, sometimes we get approaches from television or a movie, but it's a really long process. And I always say you can't count on anything until it's signed in blood in triplicate, at this stage, there's nothing, in process or anything like that. But I definitely think they are visual books, and I think they would translate well to the screen. But if it was made, I would really want them to do a really good job. So it would have to be, I would have to feel comfortable with the people making it.
There would need to be fairly high budget, I
Yes,
imagine, because
yes.
there would be so many special effects.
Yes, you need
Everything
yeah,
is-
a lot of money behind it, I think.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. May we come down here to the front row?
Hello, my name is Anya. In the Book of Faith, we learn a lot of the net mind. Do we get to know more about the net minds? Because there are, I think, at least 3 now, which we know about.
Tell us first what a net mind
What the
is.
net mind is. Okay, so this is something that's probably the most complex part of the series, and I think it puts some people off. But it's actually quite simple. The Psy, because they're psychic, they're connected on a network. All of them on a mental network. And basically I explain it as like the internet, except with minds instead of computers. So, and the net mind is an entity that has grown out of that connection. That psychic network that they're all connected with has given birth to an entity that is a sentience of its own. It's alive, in its own way. So that is the net mind. You will get to know more about them because, as I said, I do have a series plan, and part of the series plan is that you are going to get a Psy story. You've never had a Psy story, so when you get that story, that's when you'll know a lot more about the net mind. Yeah.
For those of you just coming in, the Psys are characters in the Psy-Changeling series by Nalini Singh, and they are beings who have their emotions perhaps conditioned out. And at the moment we're taking questions from the floor from Nalini's fans. Do we have another question? A question here at the back? Over here. We'll take this first.
Hello, my name is Christiane. You show us 2 stories in every book. A short story about the people and a long story about 10 books now, or by the angels, I don't know the books. Do you show the end of the long story, or is it, do you have a plan to end the long story?
End the series?
No, not end the series, but I can't say it's so good in English. The long story now is the war between the pack, and I think now it's on a high level, and I think so you can see an end in this.
Yeah.
war.
There is going to be a resolution. I can't tell you how it will be resolved, but that is part of the series arc, finding out what happens in terms of that war. So you will find out. It's not going to go on sort of over 20 more books, just 10 more. No, kidding. I'm kidding. You will find out. Yeah.
I would like to take the question here at the front.
Hello, I'm from Berlin.
Hi.
And I would like to know, how long do you writing a book? It takes 3 months if it goes good, or does it take a year, or however?
That's a really interesting question. It's actually difficult to answer. Usually when people ask me, I say it takes 4 months. But, I write a series. So by the time, like the book I'm writing now, I have been making notes for that book over the previous 11 books. So I have this many notes for this book. So the 4 months, when I talk about the 4 months, that's when I actually just sit down and it's focused only on that book, total writing time. Because I've already done the preparation. All the prep work is done over several years because it's a series book. So if I was writing something brand new that was not a series book, I think it would take at least 6 months because I would have to start, from scratch. And obviously I'm a full-time writer, so for me, I have a lot of time, I'm not writing around a job. So, so 6 months, I think, if I was writing something brand new from scratch where I was, having to build all the backstory and the notes. With a series book, probably 4 months of that concentrated writing. But again, with that preparation work already done. Yeah.
How much of your job as an author, how much of that is staying in contact with your readers?
It's a big part of my life, but it doesn't actually take that much time because, usually in the morning when I'm having my cup of tea and I'm waking up, I talk to you guys on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and so it's quite, it doesn't take a huge chunk because I'm always aware that the books are the most important and, you guys want the stories. You don't want me to talk to you all the time. You'd rather I be writing. So I'm quite disciplined about that. In the mornings I do that kind of stuff and maybe a little bit at night, but the rest of the time I'm writing.
And Nalini's work inspires many of her fans. What I've learned is that many fans produce videos that are or artwork,
and and some people have been inspired to write their own stories. So it's great. I love that my work is inspiring the creativity of other people as well.
And in fact, you actually encourage.
Sure, yeah. I love seeing, artwork, especially. I've had some beautiful pieces of artwork sent to me. I think particularly with the Angel series because it's very visual and the wings and just had some great pieces. Ilium actually is one that I get a lot of artwork for.
And also on your website, you offer advice to young writers about how to deal with rejection.
Yes. I think because, I came up through that. I wasn't anyone, I didn't know anyone. I wasn't anyone special. I just wrote and then I sent my stuff out. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to grow a thick skin, unfortunately. And yeah, I like to pay it forward because I got some very good advice when I was, starting out. So I like to do that myself, yeah.
Briefly, because we're almost at the end, can you tell us anything about the future projects? Are you staying within the two series, the Psy-Changeling series and the Guild Hunter series?
Yeah, at this stage I am. I have other ideas that I work on in the background, but I won't be sort of debuting a new series until one of these is ended, because then there would be too much of a time lag between books in the series. Or if I do something new, it would be a standalone book, which I'm not very good at, obviously. Or a trilogy that I've already completed before it came out. There won't be anything a new series won't start. So I don't want to have 3 series going at the same time. I think that would drive me crazy and it would be really difficult in terms of the releases for you guys. Yeah.
So our session is drawing to a close. I want to thank our reader, Barbara Stoll, very much for the German readings. Thank you. And I want to thank Nalini Singh for being here with us today. Nalini is a huge selling New Zealand author. You will be able to now go to Hall 3, make a note. If you are interested in buying one of her books, they are giving away free books. They're going to Hall 3, F170. It's the Egmont Verlag. So I thank you all very much for coming today, and especially for those people who asked questions, for your contribution. And I wish you great reading. Nalini Singh.
Thank you.